it stopped me from working. And I went back and watched the line over a couple of times.
My guest today is Bryce Padovan. Bryce originally trained and worked as an actor, but soon realised that he was interested in doing a much wider range of activities behind the screen. We'll talk to Bryce today about his production company and many other activities that he's involved in. Welcome, Bryce.
Thanks.
It's good to have you here.
What an experience that was. I wonder what she's going to say. Because he did it a couple of times, which is good to get a variety of different ways of doing it.
Thanks, Bryce.
And each was a different flavour.
Entirely different, yes.
Yeah. You've got a lot of range, Leslie.
Different every night, they call it. Thanks for coming along.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is so cool.
Good. Bryce, I like to start off by asking people how they got interested in the business in the first place.
When I was 7, my mum had just bought me a Sega Mega Drive 2, and which is a games console, and I was trying to get it to work on the TV, and I was flicking through the channels trying to figure out which channel would have the console on it. And I was flicking through and I saw an ad for an acting school. And I was like, wow, cool, that looks fun. I was like, Mum, I want to do that. I want to do drama stuff. And so she went and found one for me to do as an after-school program, which is at the time called the Australian Acting Academy. Mm-hmm. And I did that for between 7 and 12 for like 4 or 5 years, just as like an after-school thing. And I was there like once a week, and I entered into self-conscious, terrifying puberty, which sometimes just doesn't end. And I stopped doing anything that had anything to do with performing arts. I didn't want to do anything that had to do with drama or performance, or I just want to be the least unseen. Yeah, I don't want to be on front performing. I just want to blend by. I just want to blend in. Yeah, I want to be one of the cool kids. I don't want to do that dumb theatre stuff. A lot of my fellow classmates went on to go to university because that's what you're supposed to do when you finish school. You go to university. Yeah. And I was like, that sounds boring. I don't want to do that. So I worked in retail for a while, and I started writing scripts just out of my own interest. I guess my love for the behind the scenes of filmmaking has always been there since I was a kid. Also, as a kid, we went to Universal Studios, and I got to be, at the time, Hercules and Xena, the warrior princess, was a big thing. Yes. And they had those, they minotaurs or centaurs, yes. Half human, half four-legged animal. And I got to be one of those and I had coconut things, clip-clopping, and a blue screen under here that would turn me into... So I thought that was fascinating. Anyway, fast forward to when I'm like 19, and I started writing scripts and short films, and so I found that really interesting and just really enjoyed reading scripts, really enjoyed the idea that I could write this and it might turn into an actual film. My best friend and I in Brisbane were going on a European world trip over a Christmas holiday when I was 20, turning 21. And my friend, whose name's Oggy, he said, I have to come back at the end of January because I've got uni starting in February. And I was like, great, I've got to come back because I don't have a job, I don't have uni, don't have a car. I don't really have anything to come back for. And so I was just like, man, I should give acting a go again, because I'd always loved it as a kid. And I was really kind of heavy into writing these films and stuff, but I wanted to have more to do with the film. I wanted to be in the film. I wanted to direct the film. I wanted to shoot the film. I wanted to do everything. I looked up different acting courses that you could do in Los Angeles. So I was like, I just sold my car. I've got way too much cash than a 20-year-old should have on a world trip. I wasn't touring. The fans didn't come out just to see me. And I found this acting course that was like for adult beginners. And I found someone on Craigslist that would house a random Australian for a month and a half. And I went to LA and I started doing acting again. And the acting school invited me back to do their invite-only 2-month follow-up to the 1-month course.
Fantastic.
So I was in LA overall for about 4.5 months in 2011. And I just loved it. It was so good. I loved being a part of the process. I loved learning about that aspect of storytelling from an adult point of view, and how so many of the things you learn as a kid are just as valid for you as an adult performer. Like the amount of stuff that we would do as a kid that was like zip zap zop, but really we're learning how to be present.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And learning how to respond to someone in the moment, and reading a script and saying the lines off the script and trying
And being relaxed.
Yeah.
Really key thing.
Totally. Yeah. You know, we don't. A lot of kids don't learn a lot about anxiety and nerves until they're kind of teenagers. You know, not that they're not nervous, but that whole self-doubt thing, I feel, is you really learn how to do that well as a teenager.
Yes, you do.
And then you hone it, and as a young adult.
Yes.
And then I feel like most adults from that point just really live in that. You know, and especially when you're just starting acting, that's what you've kind of come from as a teenager or as a young adult. You come from that area of being a person.
So 4.5 months in Los Angeles, and then you came back to Melbourne?
Yeah, I came back to Melbourne just after my 21st birthday. I'd spent the max time that I could in the States without getting asked like what I was doing there. And I came back to Australia, and I was like, all right, I need to get a visa to go to America, to come back to America. I need to get an O1 visa. To do that, I need to get into a TV show. What's the easiest TV show to get into? Probably Neighbours or Home and Away. Cool. I'm going to go and get an agent. I'm going to get into Neighbours, and then we're back in 6 months. And anyway, 8 years later, here I am, still in Australia. So when I was a child actor, or acting as a child, I had an agent. That agency ended up getting swallowed up by a bigger agency. Right. And I, then went to do my whole nervous teenager thing. Yeah. The only agency that rang me out of the probably 20 or 30 that I sent my stuff out to when I got back from the States was the bigger company that had swallowed up that smaller agency.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this lady called me up and said, hey, we got your stuff here. I'd love to come in for a meeting. And I was like, great, Neighbours, here we come. I'm ready. Then O1 visa, boom, back in Hollywood. Yeah. And we caught up, and she was like, the only place we've got on the books is for extras. And I was like, okay, that's cool. You got to start somewhere, right? And a couple of months later, the auditions for the different acting schools were underway towards the end of 2011. And I flew down to Melbourne to audition for 16th Street for their part-time program. And the audition went terribly. And I went back up to Brisbane and was like, cool, I guess I'll just quit acting altogether. It was so bad. I forgot the name of my character in the audition. Oh. So Kim, the head of the school, is in the audition, and she just wanted to ask some questions about my character. And I'd done so much work. I'd figured out what colour the roof was, what my backstory was, everything. I did as much as I knew to do at the time, which wasn't that much, but I did everything I could. And she's like, yeah, so what's your character's name? And I was like, what's your character? I was like, oh, Joel Edgerton plays him in the movie. And she's like, I don't know why I would need to know that. No, what's your character's name? And I was, the person who was reading with me was holding the script, and I just went, Ben. And I was like, cool, I'm not going to get this. I'll just leave. Yeah. Anyway, so I ended up going back to Brisbane. I got a call from Kim like 2 days later saying, we'd love to have you for the course. Huh. And I was I was completely I was like, was there another Bryce Padovan that auditioned? Because I did really bad. Are you sure? So I got the call, and I was stoked, and I was officially moving to Melbourne because I'm from Brisbane. So that was a pretty big move, and I was still living with my parents at the time, so it was quite a big shift. And I called my agent and said, hey, I got into an acting school. And they're like, oh, which one? I'm like, oh, it's 16th Street in Melbourne. They're like, oh, that's a really good one. I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm really excited. And they said, oh, we don't have any extras down in Melbourne. It's just actors. I'm like, great, I'm an actor. And they were like, well, all right then. and let me on the books as an actor. But yeah, that's kind of how
it all started for you.
Yeah, I guess.
So then you finished 16th Street and you did some acting.
I finished 16th Street at the end of 2012. It was just a year-long course. And I started doing postgraduate classes there just to kind of keep things going. But then the next year, I got cast in an ABC show playing like a semi-lead character, a principal character. I was in 4 out of 6 episodes of this TV show. And that show was called Jonah from Tonga. And it was a spin-off from Summer Heights High with Chris Lilly playing Jonah Takalua. And it was kind of, him growing up. That was a pretty big role to get coming out of an acting school.
Absolutely.
And, like, not to toot my own horn or whatever, but it was quite like surprising that I even got that audition. And I was so lucky to get that I was right for that part. And I was really stoked, and we did that and it all went really well, and it didn't get released for like a year, and I was so anxious waiting for this thing to come out. And then it came out and it did pretty well, and I had a bit of a social media thing for a little bit, and then nothing really else happened. You have to be so just hustling 24/7 to continue to get work of any kind. And even if you've been on, I mean, it wasn't like this was like a breakout role or anything, but it was quite a substantial role in a show that was going to have quite a few eyes watching it and was going to end up being on Netflix and whatever.
Yeah, and international sales.
That's right. It was on HBO and the BBC as well.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I was really stoked, and I still am. It's so cool. Like,
it's a great achievement.
Yeah. But I noticed that after that, for whatever reason, and I wasn't getting the auditions that I wanted to be getting after that. But I was expecting to get a bigger range of auditions after that, which I think was more naivety out of anything else. I kind of learned that unless you somehow break out and become like a superstar overnight, you're going to be working and working and working probably forever.
Yep.
I think it was a year later. I kind of just realized that I'm not getting the auditions that I want to get. I'm still getting TVCs or like 50-word or less bit parts, which again I was really happy to go for. I'd do fucking anything as long as I was in that realm. But the main bulk of my income was still coming from a call center, and I was doing unpaid student film after unpaid student film, which again they can be really fun, but they can also be really frustrating.
Yes.
And especially when you're earning money through a job that you can get time off, but not all the time. So when you're having to constantly ring up and being like, hey, I can't work this week because I've got a job that's not paying me anything, Yes. So after a while, I kind of just got to the point where I was like, I feel like I've got a lot of ideas, a lot of like funny sketches or short films that I just want to make. I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
And then I can write my own script, and then I can film it, and then I can edit it, and then I just put myself in it. I don't have to audition. And so I started doing that, and I met a couple of friends through 16th Street, and we got on like a house on fire and just started making stuff.
What are some of the things that you've been really proudest of that you've made? We'll get on to the production company in a minute, but the stuff that came before the production company.
Some of the really early stuff, a friend of mine, Liam Seymour, who you know, our first project was going to be a 26-minute long pilot for a TV show. And the TV show there was no extra episodes. It was just a pilot. We were calling it a pilot because that's what you do when you want to make a TV show, right? You make a pilot. So we called it Bryce and Liam's Pretty Good Road Trip. And we went on a road trip together to Camperdown, which is about 2 hours away. And we had 3 friends filming it who were also doing the sound on it. And we just made up the storyline as we went, and we filmed it and edited it. And like maybe 10 people have seen it. I know you've seen it.
Yeah.
I showed you. I was like, oh, they know a guy at the ABC. I'm going to show them, and then they'll call the ABC guy, and we got the next big thing. And I showed you guys on your kitchen table. And there was a few laughs. And it was that thing of like when you're showing something and you realize it's not as good as what you thought it was, and it's just like sitting there, just like. Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Oh, no.
You know, but it was a good learning experience because you have to take a step back from your own projects for a bit. And sometimes you can only do that by not being in front of it for a month or 2 months or 3 months.
Yeah.
But I'm so proud of it because like it's just silly comedy and I love that. I love silly comedy. And it was so much fun. And we just wanted to make something, so we did it.
Yes.
And we were just like, let's just make something. And there is somewhat of a story throughout it. There you can, if you really pay attention, you can see a story in there.
Yeah.
And it had a start, middle-ish and end. Well, it ended. And it was the thing that started us making stuff. And that's what fueled the fire that is We Made That, which is the production company. Not having the attitude of, oh, how are we going to do that? But like, how are we going to do that? How are we going to, because filmmaking is just problem solving. How are we going to do it and make it the best we can and have fun while we're doing it? And then we went on to make another sketch together, which was terrible. And just acting in other people's things. And then after a while, people caught wind that we were shooting stuff. And then some people asked if we could shoot their stuff. And so we did. And then, I realized I was like, oh man, like this is fun as well.
So how did the production company We Made That start?
Liam and I had a radio show for a while. We had a radio show for 2 years. And we got that because another friend of ours, Tim Watson, had a show on the same station. And he had me on as a guest. And that was really fun. And then one of the workers at the station said, hey, you should have your own show. And I was like, that'd be great. He's like, cool, you start in 2 weeks. I was like, and so he showed me the ropes and I started a show and I got Liam on as a regular guest. Then we started doing our own thing. And we started filming it because we thought, man, it would be really cool if we could get some of these clips on Facebook, but it's going to be really watchable if people can actually see us interacting, not just listening. Yeah. So we did that. We started shooting it. And every single morning after radio, which was once a week on Wednesday mornings, Liam and I and the 2 camera guys would go and have breakfast together. And this one morning, Liam and Max had left because they had to go and do shoots. And Matt and I were both finishing our breakfast. And we were sitting there and someone had just asked us to film their wedding. And I think that was maybe the second or third thing that we'd been asked to film. And there was no money in it, they couldn't pay for it, but they just said, hey, if you guys would like to film a wedding, we'd love that and it'd be a good experience for you guys if that's what you want to do. And so we realized, we were like sitting there having breakfast and we just said to each other, we should just start a production company. Like it's that easy, you know. Yeah. We had already made a Trop Fest short that had been shortlisted, didn't make the finals, but it then went on to play in 3 other film festivals. We'd already been filming the radio stuff for ages. People were asking us to shoot events and now a wedding. We were like, we should just start a production company. Then we can make videos for other people, charge them money for it, then use that money to make our own films. Like it was some brilliant, never thought of plan before. Anyway, so we spent the next 2 months cycling through hundreds of names. Every single thing we went past, we'll call it book films. We'll call it table films, glass films, ice cube films, statue films, whatever this thing is films. Well, everything, we just put films after it. And the whole idea of our company and why we wanted to do stuff is that we wanted to make things that we were so proud of that we could show someone and go, we made that. And so it was just like, we should just call it We Made That. And then that was that.
And no one had taken that name, so you were off and running.
Actually, there's a British architecture firm. If you type in wemadethat.com, it goes to them. So you've got to remember .au. wemadethat.com.au.
What are you looking to achieve with We Made That?
I have such a interest in learning and bettering myself in whatever I'm doing, whether it be cinematography, directing, producing, acting. So I think our biggest thing is to make each project not necessarily better than the last, because that's really subjective, but use the things that we learned from the last project on the new one so that the new one is going to be an easier process. is going to be more usually aesthetically pleasing. Every part of a filmmaking team is important, and there's not one that's more important than the other. I just did a course in second ACing, which is the assistant to the operator who's operating the camera for the DP. So it's like 5 down the line of people in the camera department. And that person is responsible for taking the card or the mag out of the camera and either unloading the film and putting it in a case without exposing the film, or putting the card into a computer and dumping the footage without dropping it or whatever. So if you're in a big production...
It's very, very critical.
Critical.
Absolutely.
Absolutely critical. And if you've been on any film set where there's been a makeup person or a set designer, every single aspect of filmmaking has so much attention to detail going into it that if one person's not performing their role, you'll notice it as an audience member, or you won't notice it, but you won't know why you don't like the film.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So it was really learning that every part is so important. And so I really wanted to learn as much as I could about every part of the filmmaking aspect so that I could appreciate and respect that aspect enough that I could give instruction to that person in a leadership role and know how to talk to that person and know how to get what I wanted out of that particular person. So say I was on a film and I had a gaffer and a DP and actors. From doing each one of those roles, even though I've nowhere near and never will become an expert in either of those roles, I know how to describe that to a person so that they understand what they need to do to get that desired effect.
Okay.
I don't need to know exactly how they do it.
Yes. And the effect that you want. That's the key thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. The production company started when you were offered the opportunity to do a wedding and a couple of other events. How did you find clients?
Word of mouth of people being like, hey, we heard that you like filming and editing. I've got a show reel that I need to edit. Okay. Would you edit it for $50? Sure. Or hey, we've got this event. It's, a baptism. There's going to be 100 people there. We need you to film it. Can you do it for $100? Sure. And then whenever I started catching up with any of my actor friends, I would tell them, yeah, I'm running a production company now, and just make it sound as fancy as possible. Yeah. And tell people I'm wanting to do behind the camera stuff as well. So if you want to do stuff, I'd love to learn. Let's make that happen. And then eventually we got online, had a full website with all the different work that we had done and all of the short films that we'd produced and the different videos that we'd worked on, which was a lot of live music stuff as well. But I did quite a bit of live music photography as well. And so a lot of those people were starting to ask me to do behind the scenes video on the different shoots and different live events and stuff. So I managed to get a few gigs through there. And then honestly, it mostly was and pretty much still is word of mouth. Some have just randomly found us through Google and sent a message to us and said, hey, can you quote this job? But most of them have been word of mouth.
What sorts of work do you want to do with We Made That?
For the past year and a half, I had really wanted to do a TVC. I'd really wanted to do a proper playing on the TVC. And we finally got the chance to do that at the end of last year. We got the chance to produce and write and film this TVC, 30-second proper legit TVC for this construction company. And it was like I wouldn't say a dream come true, but it was like a really big goal ticked off. I feel like there's such an really interesting challenge in getting people to watch an ad because everyone hates ads. However, ads hold up the entire industry. This industry could not be without advertising. That's where all the money comes from. So to get someone to watch an ad, like effective marketing, I find that really interesting. I love stories so much, and I love an audience that is really involved in a story, and I love entertaining people a lot. I just love it so much. There's so many ads that don't do any of those things. They just display the product. But the ads that I remember are the ones that either made me laugh or that had some kind of a heartwarming story, right? So the Qantas ad is a really good example of that. The girl coming home from a big trip. A really fun challenge to make an ad that people will actually watch. So that's where I'm pushing We Made That in that direction. We've already done quite a few online campaigns for different charities like Live Below the Line and Water Aid. We did a series of kind of viral style marketing for them, which went pretty well. We've now done that TVC, which is now on air in Albury-Wodonga and playing in the cinema, which is really cool. And we're about to work on a bunch of other content for a camping accessory company. So that's where I really want We Made That to go, towards like mid to higher end. I won't even say high end. I just want to make interesting, creative commercials. That's what my interest is at the moment. But 5 years ago, my interest was in acting. So in 5 years, I might be like, screw that, I want to do something else, which is great.
So what has acting given you in what you're doing now?
I think this is a pretty popular opinion now, I think, but one of the most important things for the people behind the camera, the key people behind the camera, I think, mainly DP and director, I think one of the key things that they should have an understanding of is performing in front of the camera, which doesn't mean that every director needs to go and do 12 months of acting. You're all working on the same script. You're all doing, various different jobs that are going towards the same aim, but acting and the behind the scenes creating have so many different elements to them. An actor needs to understand a director's point of view. Doesn't mean an actor needs to be a director, but to have the experience of what it's like to instruct a team to get your vision on the screen. Because when I went through 16th Street, one of the biggest things I learned, if you don't have a common language between yourself and the director, you need to translate whatever that director says into terms that are going to make sense for you. So if a director says, I need you to be 20% more angry, which is often what will happen on a TVC. So you need to go, okay, as an actor, what's something that I would get angry about? And I know this is a comedic commercial, so it can't be like full, like Oscar-winning anger, unless that's what they're after. Maybe they are after that. And there's so many Australian drama, as in TV, and a lot of TVCs, you don't get any time with the director beforehand. You just show up and you need to know what you're doing, and then be able to take direction. And so I think it's so good for those two roles, the director and the actor, to have experience doing the other thing, so that even if they're not speaking your language, you'll be able to develop a language pretty quick on set. Because a DP as well, or an operator or a first AC who's doing the focus pulling on a film might say, hey, can you just stand there for 10 seconds and look straight down the barrel of the camera because I need to get your sharps. And if you don't know what that means, you could be right in the middle of doing an acting process thing, and then you're suddenly taken out of it, and then you're going to have to try and get back in and you're all flustered and stuff. Whereas if you have an understanding of just those roles, you'll know that all that person needs is for you to do that so that they can get focused on your eyes. Yeah. And then you don't need to come out of your process to do that.
Yeah. One of the things that I know you've done is you've continued to work with Liam, although he's not part of We Made That. Yeah. What are you now working on with Liam? Because it's been a long and enduring partnership.
Yeah, so we've done quite a few things together. And when we were doing the radio stuff, that was more weekly kind of skits and stuff. And now we've stopped doing the radio show. We decided that we'd work on more scripted stuff so that we could take more time to really figure out a story, do it the way we wanted to do it, and really plan it and do it as best we could, as opposed to more on the fly kind of stuff. Yeah. So we did a film last year called Bryce and Liam Go to Space, and it's about myself and Liam going to space. Yeah. And we did that as a Tropfest entry, and it got shortlisted, but it didn't get into the finals. So we decided we'd send it out to a whole bunch of other festivals. And it's been going really well. It's been in 15 festivals now. It's played in the UK, it's played in the US, and it's played a few venues in Australia as well. It played at a festival called Australia's Funniest Shorts. Small, but like really cool. It was over in Perth, and unfortunately, the acceptance email went to my junk email box, and so I didn't even know that we had gotten in. And then I got an email randomly, months after entering this festival, being like, congratulations, you've won Australia's funniest shorts. And I was like, what is this? I don't know this festival. And I had to backtrack, and I found that the acceptance email, and so we didn't even know that we'd been accepted into this really cool festival. And then we found out that we had won this award, which is really, really cool. And bummer that we didn't know, because we probably would have tried to organise to go over there for it if I just had checked my bloody junk. Check your junk email. That's if you want to start a business, check your junk email every fucking day, because there'll be something in there that you need. So that film's gone really well, and it was really fun, and we learned so much stuff making that. And it's
what's the story?
I love space, and I'd had this idea in mind for years of these two guys looking up at the stars. One of them wants to go to space. The other one's like, you'll never get there. Like, when we decided we'd make a film for Trotfest, I just started writing that. I wrote these two guys sitting looking up at the stars. It's my character's birthday, and I'm saying, please, like, it's my birthday. Please, let's go to space. And Liam's like, it's impossible. You're being so dumb. Let's not do that. And then I take him to the garage, and I show him this big project that I've been working on. And he goes, wow, this is getting a little bit concerning. You're spending too much time on this child's project. And I press a button on the craft, and we shoot off into space. And then it kind of all goes wrong, and we're, will we survive? So yeah, I'd really wanted to do it to make it look as high production value as possible, but also be really lo-fi. So we spent 2 months building this ship out of cardboard, getting all different bits and pieces from Harvey Norman, Good Guys, JB Hi-Fi, bloody you name it. Bits from microwaves, old computer screens, old keyboards, old Telstra phones that no one uses anymore, and just gluing them onto this cardboard. I actually got my girlfriend involved in the film as well. We decided that my character probably, because he spends too much time at home fantasizing about going to space, he's probably built in an AI robot voice into the ship, and he's probably given her a really sexy voice, and he's probably made her a little bit too into him. So we decided that the only person that would agree to do that role is my girlfriend. And we actually I forgot to ask Maddie if she'd be okay doing that role until the day we needed to record her voiceover. So I said, hey, babe, we need someone to do the part of Scarlett. You're doing it? And she was like, what do you mean? I'm like, cool, learn your lines. It's an American accent, so do that as well. And luckily she has a performing background, and she just bloody nailed it. And yeah, the film has, we got the chance to go to the States for the film last year, to go to the Reading Film Festival, which is in like rural Pennsylvania. They were kind enough to help us out with some accommodation over there. So we went over for the festival and hung out there for a couple of days.
That's fantastic.
Which is pretty cool, yeah. And we just went up to Sydney for Flickerfest as well. It got into Flickerfest, which is, we're stoked about. So yeah, that film is going to be online very soon. And the next project that we're starting to work on is called Homeboys, and it's about two guys that work in a funeral home. And that's all I can say, because that's all we know about it so far. We both really enjoy doing narrative fictional stuff as well. And I think that's what lies at the root of me wanting to do creative marketing, because a lot of the clever ads that I really like have a story behind them, and it's almost always fictional. And I really like the idea of making a 30-second film or a 1-minute film, or, a 15-second film where someone can watch it and relate to it. I want to do that because there's a creative challenge there. We don't make any money doing fictional stuff, so we have to build that up over time and then work out what we're going to do. And then once we've saved up money that we've earned from working for other people, then we can go, okay, we've got a bit of money. Let's make Bryce and Liam Go to space. That's
fantastic. It's probably a good place to finish. Bryce, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure.
All right, now I'll interview you. Okay. Today my guest is Leslie. She lives here.
So I'll just do my finish off, which is, thank you for watching Tete-a-Tete. I've been with Bryce Padovan today. See you next time.